Good afternoon. I'm Charlie Levesque. Sorry you have to look at my puss again. So on the program committee, all of those who came up with ideas end up moderating the panel. So there you go. I'm here again. So hopefully everybody's belly's full and it's nice and cool in here. So we shouldn't fall asleep, I think, right? It's hot out in the hallway. It's nice and cool here. So welcome to this afternoon's panel. Only one kind of administrative note, and that is that the auction is going to close at 3 o'clock. So we're going to finish this panel at 2:50. So you'll have time to leave here. If you haven't bid on something, haven't put in your tickets, you'll be able to do that because they're going to raffle. Everything's going to get called right after that during that next break. Because after the next break, the big room is going to get put together again while we're out waiting. All right, so we'll have time for that. So thank you so much for coming. This is a wonderful opportunity to talk about some stuff we haven't seen at this conference yet. And that is some very state-specific economic initiatives around the forest products industry from Maine and Vermont. That's what we're going to talk about. We have only 2 speakers. They have plenty of time, and we'll have plenty of time for discussion as well. So that'll be great to have that time. So first up this afternoon is Patrick Strauch, who is the Executive Director of the Maine Forest Products Council. And he began his career as a forester for St. Regis Paper Company in 1981. Eventually became the director of the recycling company in Bangor, Maine. In 2004, he became executive director of the Maine Forest Products Council. So he's been there a while, very experienced, and has a lot to share with us. If you don't know about the Maine Forest Products Council, it is Maine's Forest Products Industry Trade Association, and it really has all sectors of the supply chain as part of it. I'm going to just say that Patrick resides on a tree farm, and so he's still out there playing around in the woods some in Exeter, Maine, with his wife Nancy, and he's going to talk to us about a long running project called For Maine, which is now, you're probably going to tell us, but 5, 6, 7 years old. It's been going for a while now to reinvigorate the forest products industry in Maine. Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. It's we're in the heat of the legislative session, and I do a lot of advocacy work in Maine, so it is crazy right now. So it's very nice to be about 6 hours away. Things are happening there, but I have an able assistant, and it's great to be in a room of foresters. So getting back to my roots today. So I'm going to talk about a program. It's been going on, I think, since 2016 is when we started thinking about it, and it's the For Maine project. And so it's unique. Let me see if I can. There we go. And of course, I will start with a slide. It's an old slide. I'm reluctant to update the numbers because I'm afraid it's we've been through some interesting times, but we're about an $8.1 billion industry in Maine, about 1.7 billion in payroll. We're big. It's an important part of the state. And there were a few of us that got together early in 2016 and started thinking about what's the strategic plan for the state. We started seeing changes in the economy, and we noticed somebody has to start thinking about where are we going as a state? How are the markets going to change? So there was a few of us, I think Bob Wagner and Aaron Weiskettel from the University of Maine started working with myself and Peter Triandafillo on a concept, and it was a standard. It was represented by this diagram, but it was the first kind of thought piece on how do you go about doing a strategic plan for a state. And we had, the typical SWOT analysis, look at markets, look at supply and a wood supply analysis. It had all those pieces, and we took inspiration from some of the visions and the kind of thinking that was taking place in other parts of the world and the country. Sweden, Finland were really starting to get their act together. Minnesota had come to Maine and talked about some of their strategic planning. But it really took a turn when we started losing some mills along the Penobscot River. We had a major shift in wood markets occur. 6 mill closures along the Penobscot, all pretty much in softwood. So we lost 50% of our softwood pulp market in 2 years. So nothing like a little pressure to start thinking about the future and having a strategic plan. So you should do that before you start really losing markets. But nonetheless, everybody was concerned. The congressional delegation got very involved, Angus King, Susan Collins, and they contacted the economic development team through the U.S. Economic Development Agency. And we brought a bunch of government officials up here to take a look at Maine, because if we qualified for some type of disaster relief, we could really begin to do something with regard to putting together a plan. And the economic development team is usually deployed, I think they had worked in the shrimp fisheries, where the shrimp business was really shrinking, and in the coal mining areas. They're used to finding industries to replace an industry that's left. Ours was unique. We didn't want to get out of the woods business. We just wanted to diversify our market. And so we had a lot of interest. We had every agency in the U.S. We had the U.S. Department of Agriculture, their economic development agencies, a real focus on Maine, and that helped us build our program. The unique collaboration, of course, we had EDA, we had the congressional delegation, we had the Maine Woodland Owners Group. They're formerly the Small Woodlot Owners of Maine. We had the University of Maine all along, the Maine Forest Products Council, USDA, the professional logging contractors, BioBase Maine were some of the original founders of all this thinking. And then we had the Maine Development Foundation, which was an interesting kind of addition to the team. Yellow, light green, and I figured out how to work with one another. We were from different aspects of business experience, but the Maine Development Foundation added a lot of credibility with regard to us working with communities, and that was really important. We started putting together sort of a plan. We had goals. We wanted to move our business from roughly 8 billion to 12 billion, just sort of an aspirational goal. We wanted to continue to be a leader in the forest products economy. We wanted things to be ambitious but achievable. We needed to not forget, growth in our traditional industries was important. It isn't about going out and finding the best gadget out there, because those things are hard to find. They're an important part of what we wanted to do, and they were an important part of our diversification. But we needed to make sure we were taking care of the businesses we had too. And we wanted to attract capital. So we had several goals: sustain and strengthen Maine's existing forest businesses. Makes sense. Attract capital investment and develop greater economic prosperity in the forest products sector, both existing and new businesses, and then support the revitalization of Maine's rural communities as places where people want to work and visit. So all good challenges, the things we're still facing now. Maybe we were just stating the obvious, but it was an important thing to kind of organize and put forward and get people thinking about. We had structure in place. This is a hard chart to see, but basically our work streams, we spent a lot of time thinking about what are the areas that we need to look at. Keep in mind, we needed to find wood, markets for wood. We had plenty of wood. How are we going to attract people to Maine, and how do we bring them there to make investments? So we needed to know where we stood in the globe. We had a global analysis done by Indafor. This project was built on contracting with experts, having them respond to questionnaires and requests for proposals, and then managing those vendors going forward. So we had Indefor doing a lot of work for us. We had wood supply analysis done with Sewell Company and a team of experts in that area. And we had stakeholder analysis done by the university. Emerging tech was something we wanted to make sure we were focusing on. Transportation was important, and wood energy was important at the time. We were starting to lose some of our biomass energy plants, but wood energy is really important to the whole ecosystem. So we wanted to understand that better and position ourselves. We had goals and strategies, and then we got into an implementation area where we had the implementation plan, a marketing plan, and really a community working group started coming out of all this, because it's great to say you're going to go out in the world, you're going to bring people in to take a look at all the opportunities Maine has. But if you have communities that aren't quite thinking it through and willing to cite a wood fuel refinery in an old mill site, you want to think about that ahead of time and see if there's buy-in to that. So that was an important part of what we did. So out of that came a lot of different reports. We had a strategic investment attraction kind of analysis that was done. You can find all this stuff on our formaine.org website, but we did quite a bit of work to take a look at what are the strategic investment attractions, what are our strengths and weaknesses, and we really started marketing to different parts of the world through trade association meetings and different events. We also looked carefully at what species do we want to be marketing. We had a lot of competition for hardwood pulp. That made our mills kind of uncomfortable to join the Formaine process if we were only going to increase competition. So we looked at where are the opportunities, and they certainly were strong in the spruce fir area. And then you can see where we're weak or moderate or strong. And this has been helpful in guiding people into different areas of Maine and understanding what our wood basket was like. We also really looked at what are the different things you can do with wood. And we did a ranked analysis of all the things that were important to us. We had competition, markets, but keep in mind, we wanted to find things that would consume a lot of volume too. It's great to find something that might use 10,000 tons of wood, but we needed 2 million tons of market. So we were trying to prioritize and think about that as well. So that's how some of these different products fell in line. But a pretty thorough analysis that again is in some of our reports that are online. We settled on some, focused more on some than others. We had the traditional pulp and paper, laminated veneered lumber rose to the top of the list, medium density fiber board, oriented strand board. We already had quite a few of those mills, but those still had opportunities. And then we looked at cross-laminated timber, nanocellulose. Dissolving pulp was a stretch, but capable, possible with some of our companies that we have in Maine. Cellulosic sugars, pyrolysis oil. We've got a pyrolysis oil refinery being sited in Maine. So, and insulating wood fiber, the Timber HP project is off the ground and running. So those were some of the things that we knew we needed to focus on. Emerging technologies. At the time, we were looking at Poland Spring was really interested in replacing plastic bottles. They since moved on, I think, to some of the packaging of the plastic bottles, but this was something we've kept our eye on. And as an offshoot of that, that's the way I think of it. We recently applied to be a manufacturing tech hub in the bioeconomy field, the forest bioeconomy field, and have submitted a major proposal with the University of Maine. the Rue Institute, which is a spinoff of Northeastern University, and a lot of the same people that have been involved, taking this whole idea of a major tech hub moving forward. So this has been, I think of it as a spinoff of the 4Main project, thinking about emerging technologies. And we had fun with some of the things. We hired an advertising firm. If you look on our website, you'll see a lot of videos, the kind of "this is my office" videos, trying to appeal to another generation of what it's like to be a logger, a forester, to work in a mill. We had fun with coming up with new slogans. So here's a play on the ability of nanocellulose to be used in and making bone replacement. So the communications part of it was really pretty important as well. And it was pretty clear to us we needed to work on workforce development. As a matter of fact, that's turned into kind of our phase 3 of the 4Main project, really looking at where do we stand, how many loggers and truckers do we have, what's our paper manufacturing replacement rate, our wood product manufacturing. I mean, all this is complicated by COVID and some of the recent economic things that have happened in our region. But this is where we still go with regards to some of the active work we've got going on right now. So I'll give you just a quick, if you're talking to investors, if you're really lined up and thinking about where is Maine heading, we had a slide deck put together. So you want to be ready to present to people coming in, and we use this slide deck and pull out slides and prepare presentations. And so it's been a way to kind of focus our thoughts. I'll just go through a few of them. I must say our governor really picked up on this 4Main concept. She liked the brand. She incorporated it into her administration at an early date. And really believed in it and talks about it. And every time I see her, everybody's trying to cite a CLT facility in their state, but Maine's going to try and do it first, of course. So we all are competing for that. But that's a focus on her mind, is I want a CLT facility in this state. And to get the leader of the state really focusing on the forestry issues and how to move us ahead, I think was one of the biggest accomplishments of 4Main. And it wasn't just 4Main. We got our industry making statements about Maine. Ken Liu, the CEO of Nine Dragons, Mike Hawes from SAPI. All these people are making claims about Maine being a good place to work. We talk about our Invest in Maine's bioeconomy moment. And we have, we've got some things that we've put together and information about our state. We're working with the Department of Economic and Community and Development, Maine and Company, which is a semi-private public entity, and the University of Maine. Everybody's kind of pulling together to manage for this bioeconomy concept we're putting together. So we can prove we're in a transformation. We passed laws to give tax credits for renewable fuel made from wood. We've had upgrades in our railroad. We've got 3 Class 1 railroads in Maine, which was unheard of, and just that's all developed in the last 6 years. 100,000 pounds on the highway. And we've been helping some of our startup companies with getting a renewable energy credit through the Department of Energy. If you believe it or not, one of the challenges to having energy credits for wood-based products was that the rules were written that if you obtained wood from a plantation, you qualified, but natural regeneration, you didn't. So we had to figure out how to finesse that down in Washington a little bit. And the congressional delegation helped us with a Band-Aid on that, but we've also got some legislation in place. So all those things were important. And then just to give you another example of timing, this governor had a real interest in climate change, planning for it. She put a bunch of us on her climate change council. So we had influence and could discuss more how the forest industry fits into that. The wood carbon numbers were great. You know, we found one of our important findings through the technical committee was that 60% of our state's annual fossil fuel emissions is taken up by our forests, and then another 15% by durable wood products. So we had a interesting 75% of our emissions are really balanced by our wood products industry. Now, if you're a state with a lot of wood and few people, you can have these numbers too, but that's we'll take advantage of it, and that's been important. But if you look in the climate action plan, there's a lot of space dedicated to Maine's forest bioeconomy and climate change. There's a connection made at a policy level, which I think has been really important, and we've been working on that going forward. So have we made a difference with this project? I can't claim, I'll take credit for all the good things that happened, but there are some negative things along the way in the last few years since we started this project. But certainly there was a void in leadership at a critical time in the state of Maine. And I think this project helped kind of focus people's energies, get thinking about the future. That was an important part of what For Maine delivered. We had an alignment of the industry and government agencies. It's not often you can walk into a Department of Economic Development and they've got one of those thermometers with a goal on it, and the goal was to find 2 million tons of softwood capacity in Maine. So that we really, I think, helped in terms of focusing all our economic development efforts, both private and public, in moving towards a unified goal. Policy priorities were advanced. Talked about the renewable fuel credits, but also we got through legislation on combined heat and power, renewing small combined heat and power matched to sawmills, and having both the thermal and electrical load matched up. That was an important thing to do in a place where people are still debating whether biomass is neutral or not. The administration said it is, and therefore we're moving forward with these kinds of opportunities. Capital investments, we were going great. We had over $1 billion in the first few years of For Maine, and then I call it COVID pixel digester blow up. They were all kind of the same thing, actually, in terms of interesting things that happened in the marketplace. We gained markets, we lost markets, but I think we've still got a working group going forward. We've got a OSB plant going into the old Livermore Falls plant where the digester blew up. We've got, I mentioned a couple of fuel refineries that are getting closer to reality, and expansion in the market. Sappi is putting another $400 million into some of their lines, and LP is making a new siding. Just a lot of things that are going right, and that will help us in the long vision. So speaking of vision, there's this common vision we created. I think it was important. I'm still working on communicating it to some legislators. That's always a challenge, but I think we'll bring some more of this information in front of them so that they can make the connection that if you want to be a manufacturing state, you got to realize how to treat manufacturers with regard to policy. So that's ongoing. But we really created a pretty good brand, and that's why the industry is really behind moving this forward, finding additional funding for it. It's referred to in the general discussion of policymakers, and so it's really important to keep it alive and going. And we have 2 new chairs, co-chairs of the committee that'll keep the operation alive and thriving. So that's our That's our story of For Maine, and you can reach us at formaine.org, org, not ugh. This guy really should be smiling so you can see his pearly white teeth, but we've had some fun with it too in terms of thinking about how to stimulate interest in the forest economy. Thank you.
So my partner, Eric Kingsley, is based in Portland, Maine, and, you know, talking with him about For Maine, and here's what he says to me that it's done. And Patrick hasn't taken enough credit for all this, but he said, you know, there's a completely different mindset in Maine in all sectors, from the governor down, in the public and private sector, about the forest products industry. Every